G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I am coming back to this brand. Yep, it is indeed a Tag Heuer, the very popular brand, probably in the top 5 of most people's consciousness if you just randomly pick people from the street. I think, that's the strength of their marketing, but it is a brand that watch enthusiasts like to knock on. They do seem to have a few missteps, several missteps I should say, throughout their history. So let's get into this particular watch. I'll just show you the outer box, which a lot of you will be familiar if you know Tag Heuer, but the inner box is the thing that's a little bit more interesting. So I'll just show you this first. So warranty kind of information and card there, I'll just put that aside. But the one thing I want to do point out is that they do go with a specific caliber manual. So this is a caliber 11 manual specific to this particular watch, and you can see the fold out here, and very pleasingly the English part is really only 9 pages, or even less than that, actually 7 pages. That's all you have to read if you're inclined to read this. Watch enthusiasts probably don't really go and read the manual, so you probably don't ever have to actually look at it to find out how the watch works. So that's the outer box, and I'll just put that aside and show you the inner box, which in this case is very pleasingly the vintage old style Heuer box, which does not have the word tag here. And one of the things about this particular watch is that it doesn't have the word tag anywhere on the watch itself, which I think some people view as a positive, ironically. So let's open it up. You can see the Heuer over there as well. This nice kind of it's cardboard, but it's pretty nicely done as far as the cardboard box goes. It's lined by faux leather, and as well as kind of I guess a suede material on the inside here with that matching cushion. Okay, so that's the boxing. Let's put it aside and get into the actual watch for review. So guys, yes, right here we have a Tag Heuer Monaco Caliber 11. The model number here is CAW211P. Full links down the bottom to retail sites and whatnot that I can find. So this watch at retail is 5,900 USD, but at grey retail you can get it for I think under 4,500 as far as I've seen. Obviously if you buy it from authorized dealers it would be somewhere in between those prices. This one is effectively a reissue, or I guess not a direct reissue, but an update of the original 1969 watch, which is one of the most iconic watches that Tag Heuer makes, or in fact it was Heuer who started it. Tag Heuer really came into existence in the 1980s when the TAG group bought into the Heuer brand, but this one originated before that. 1969 was really quite a remarkable year, and horology wise it introduced the first automatic chronographs. 3 of them came into existence probably around the same time, and for those of you who know your history, you'll know that this was one of them, the Caliber 11, but the other 2 was the one by Seiko and also the one by Zenith called the El Primero, literally translated as the first. But nobody really knows which one should be credited as being the first automatic chronograph. They probably all 3 are credited with that historical year. This one is remarkable also in being the first square water-resistant watch, so that was a bit of achievement. And then later on, if you're familiar with this watch's history, marketing-wise, they got it promoted by Steve McQueen, or he maybe also partly initiated himself in the movie Le Mans. I never actually watched Le Mans, but that partly catapulted this watch to some level of fame. To me, this was also made famous in Breaking Bad. It was Walter White's watch. Well, Walter White actually wore a Caliber 12, which actually has Tag Heuer in it. So that's a little bit different, but in the prison killing scene, he used this as a chronograph timer, and that kind of took center stage on that particular episode. So that kind of got a bit of boost of fame there from Tag Heuer product placement in that series. So enough about that historical record of this particular watch and where it's been promoted. Now, getting into this particular movement, now they call it the Caliber 11, but that's a little bit, I think, a little bit misleading. I don't know whether that's partly deliberate there, but This isn't the original Caliber 11 from 1969. This is an updated Caliber 11, but they've called it the same thing. It is based on a Sellita SW300-1 base with a Dubois Départ chronograph module, 2006 chronograph module added on top. So that's really what this is. It is a modular chronograph, not an integrated chronograph, in case you were wondering. So it doesn't have a column wheel on display at the back there. 28,800 beats per hour, of course, with Tag Heuer. 59 joules, counting both the Sellita base as well as the chronograph module. 40-hour reserve. It does have quick set date, in this case implemented on the square window, black writing on a white disc there at the 6 o'clock position. Hacking and manual winding here at the 0 position. Really, you can wind it as it is, so it's not a screw down crown. Looking at the watch face itself, I've got the chronograph running with the central red chronograph second hand. It's got 30-minute totalizer at 9 o'clock and running seconds at the 3 o'clock position sub-dial there. You can see this movement. Tag Heuer quotes a factory tolerance of -5 to +20 seconds per day. In actual use, this actually running slightly slow. It was running at -3 seconds per day. It's within tolerance and it's pretty close to perfection here. So not bad there, I think. Right, the case here, all right, just show you that iconic case, 39 millimeters square. That's really what that square is. The thickness is 14.5 millimeters. So for a modular chronograph, that's actually pretty good. I think to achieve under 15 millimeters. The lug width is 22 millimeters, which you might argue is disproportionate, but this is a square watch. So I think the rules for circular watches don't apply, strictly speaking, and I think proportionally it actually gets away with it. It actually looks okay with those 22 millimeter lugs because of the square watch nature. Lug to lug is 47.5, so it is a 39 millimeter square there, but with those lugs sticking out, it is 47.5 millimeter lug to lug, and the overall weight is 125, so substantial, 125 grams, but not too heavy because it is actually a leather strap watch, as you can see it in my hand here. Alright, moving on to the finishing then. So you have here alternating brushes and polished surfaces. So at the top, longitudinal brushing on the bezel, and then as you go to that angled surfaces, you can see it's a polished bevel surface here, longitudinal brush on the side, and then polish on the bottom bevel, as well as the bevel on the case back, and finishing with longitudinal brushing on the actual case back flat surface there. Alright, so it's a pretty good, and I think the finishing, no complaints. It is at a pretty high level, and at this price point, you would kind of expect perfection out of the factory, and it is, pretty free of any criticism, I think, in my close view of this watch that I've had for the last few days. Okay, so going on to the case back here, you can see it's screw secured. It's of course not a screw down case back in a square watch like this kind of construction, right? 4 screws holding it down. This crown is not a screw down crown, and these are chronograph pushers that are not screw secured. Overall though, it does come with a water rating of 100 meters. Okay, moving on to the dial here. So let's just zoom in and let you see that really iconic dial, So matte blue, really a nice matte blue dial with applied steel markers. You can see right at the side there where 1, 2, 4, 5 is. You get those horizontal applied steel markers just like it was in the original 1969 watch. And I'll try to put comparison shots on the side here to do a side by side. Okay. It does have printed markings on the dial itself, so those are not actually raised. So the Monaco Heuer automatic chronograph, Swiss made at the bottom, the chapter ring, those are all printed. And as I mentioned, pleasingly, this does not have the word tag on it. It just has that vintage Heuer logo. The square or squarish subdials in the 3 and 9 o'clock position are slightly recessed. I don't know if that's going to come through here, but they are slightly recessed, and they have a silver finishing on them. And the details, really are where it comes into the vintage kind of recollection here. So if you look at the reds here, really nice recollection. The middle of the hour and minute hands have a red stripe. Of course, that red central chronograph hand, right? The red stripe through that 12 o'clock marker there. And then at the 5-minute marks all the way around, you get those red points there, right? So nice touches all the way around this dial here. All right, the main hands are just polished steel baton hands with a lume stripe down the middle and the red tips that you can see there. The sub-style hands are just simple black sticks really, but you know, they serve their purpose. The lume application on this watch is just for telling the main time. There is no lume function for the sub-seconds or the chronograph, so you won't be able to read this chronograph in the dark, but you will be able to tell the main time here. Right, so I think that's most of the details here on the dial. Going on to what's above that is a very, very interesting, you know, this is just a fascinating sapphire crystal. I don't think I've stared at a sapphire construction as much as I had this one, you know, because it's a square sapphire, but it's also slightly domed on the top. Right, I don't know if that's going to be able to be conveyed here, but you can see the reflections, you know, it shows there's a domed sapphire. And then on the side here, you got that bevel edge, that chamfer, that gives it that three-dimensional rays thing here. So very nicely done square sapphire, I have to say, on this particular watch here. Okay, so that's the description of the watch itself. And moving on to the strap now. So what you have here is really just a stitched tropic style leather strap, you know, meaning these perforations here. You know, quality-wise, I think it's pretty good. You know, I think it's very nice feeling. It feels robust and it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart as quickly as some of those China ones that I've featured. This is a pretty nice solid deployant class, right? Steel deployant with push button release there. Right, just let you see that. Right, that's how it is. And vintage Heuer logo at the bottom here. But this is interesting in that it's actually upside down in the traditional orientation. So the watch is here, as you twist it around, it's actually kind of upside down, but you know, it's the actual position that you're used to on the wrist. So let's just put it on very quickly for the wrist shot, and very pleasingly, because of that clasp, you put it on very quickly, and here it is, right? Tag Heuer Monaco caliber 11 on my 17 centimeter wrist, 47.5 lug to lug. I think I get away with it. It is kind of largish, and even though it's 39 millimeter on the width here, because it's a square, it's got a pretty dominant presence on the wrist there, doesn't it? So have a look at that. Alright guys, so that's the overall specs and description of this watch. You know, what have I really enjoyed about this? Well, I think firstly I'll say the quality is, you know, what you would expect for a $5,000 price tag watch, right? There's no criticism on the finishing here. They've achieved, I think, what they set out to. You know, it's not super creative. There's some decoration on the rotor, as well as the finishing of the movement there, right? So some you know, details that you can see there, but the overall finishing is not, you know, haven't gone for groundbreaking, but quality-wise, it's what I expect. You know, there's no defects here. It's absolutely perfect, and you know, there's no complaints, I think, in terms of the level of quality that I expect from Tag Heuer. It's got an absolutely iconic square design, right? The vintage design is a classic styling. You know, look at the dial here. The square design is instantly recognizable. People often say that you can wear this watch and people looking at this across the room will suspect that it is a Heuer Monaco that you're wearing, and that's very true. You know, that's really quite recognizable at a distance. You know, lots of nice little details in the vintage style here with the left-sided crown. Yep, they got that. The red lines, the 5-minute marks, red spots, the Swiss made, which is not at the bottom of the dial but above the date window. That's also kind of call back to the original placement. And there's no tag. You know, they've chosen not to put a tag in this kind of a reissue update model, which I think a lot of fans have been very pleased about. And in terms of overall choice for use, I think this is going to be, you know, on the very top of my list for what watches I think would be very cool to wear while driving. And I've really been wearing this driving, and it really is a nice one to have a wrist while you're cruising around. You know, it's really up there. And you know, in terms of watch choice, this is possibly the best Tag Heuer, one of the very best Tag Heuer watches you can get today. I think, to me, the Octavia with the in-house Heuer O2 movement is up there, and maybe even slightly better, but this is right up there in the top two Tag Heuer watches that I would, perhaps choose to consider if I consider a next purchase from Tag Heuer. What are the particular weaknesses of this watch? Well, despite the fact that it doesn't have the tag there, even on the back, if you look at the rotor, it just says Heuer. No tag anywhere here. It is still ultimately a Tag Heuer watch with all the connotations of the company. A lot of people like to rag on Tag Heuer because it's very easy. The missteps they have made, their kind of cheesy marketing, their designs, which some of them are a little bit questionable in terms of taste. The 1887 caliber, misstep and controversy there. Lots of reasons why people rag on Tag Heuer, and if you have any issues with that, well, you got to be prepared to put up with the fact that ultimately it's still a tag. It's not a true vintage Heuer watch. At $5,000 plus, it's not an in-house manufacturer, right? It's Debut de Poir with Sellita. Sometimes people start expecting in-house manufacture at these prices, and I think that's reasonable to start expecting that, but this one isn't, and there are plenty of watches more expensive that do not have an in-house movement. So I think that's not unreasonable, but this certainly isn't. But I suspect it's possibly a unique application of this module with a chronograph like this, with that left-handed crown. So maybe that's still some unique and custom usage of this kind of movement in a watch. So you got that going for it. And then lastly, I'll tell you about the design. A lot of things I like about this, but the case side is still somewhat slabby. Okay, there's a lot of flat surface there, not a lot of curving detail there, and that's really one of the things I find about Tag Heuer. Their case side designs are not really super creative. That's a slight weakness, criticism, if you will, on the design here. So guys, here we have it. A watch which I've really enjoyed and I've really liked previewing over this week. Thank you to my work colleague Tane, who has made this watch available. I really enjoyed and really tempted to perhaps even consider getting one myself. Guys, let me know what you think about the Heuer Monaco, or the Tag Heuer Monaco Caliber 11. A watch which I think has a lot of popularity. Really interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you for sticking with me, and if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. Objective, unbiased information on horology, new content weekly. Cheers guys for watching this again, and as always, I'll catch you next time.